Okay, let's dive right in. For years, how we think about child sexual exploitation material, or CSAM offenses, has been shaped by a single powerful fear. But what if that fear is built on a bit of a misunderstanding? A huge new meta-analysis just dropped, and it's forcing us to look at the real data. And it might just challenge everything you thought you knew about risk.
The whole conversation really boils down to this one question. When we talk about these offenses, are we talking about one single type of person with one single level of risk to the community? The common assumption, a lot of the time, is yeah, probably. But is that what the evidence actually says? And the answer, according to this massive new piece of research, is a clear, resounding no. And look, this isn't just one study. It's a meta-analysis. They pulled together the data from 30 different studies, covering almost 26,000 individuals. And what they found is a fundamental split in the population that completely changes the risk equation. All right, so the data shows us there are two very distinct groups of offenders. And getting the difference between them, well, that's the key to this whole thing.
First, you've got what the researchers call CSAM exclusive offenders. And the name really says it all, right? Their entire history of sexual offending involves only CSAM. There are no recorded contact offenses on their record, period. And that little detail is absolutely crucial.
And then you have the second group, mixed offenders. For these folks, their sexual offending history includes CSAM and this is the big one, it also includes a contact sexual offense. We're talking about a crime that involved physical contact with a victim. This difference in their past turns out it's a massive predictor of their future.
And this brings us right to the heart of the study, the core finding of the entire analysis. It's a tale of two vastly different risks. The data shows that the future reoffending rates for these two groups aren't just a little different, they are worlds apart. So let's start with that CSAM exclusive group. Remember, the ones with no prior contact offenses? Their rate of committing a new contact sexual offense over a 5-year period is just 0.6%. Let that sink in for a second. 0.6%. I mean, that is incredibly low, and it seriously challenges the idea that this behavior is some kind of guaranteed path to physical offending.
But now look at the mixed group. For those who already have a history of both CSAM and contact offenses, that 5-year reoffending rate for a new contact offense jumps all the way up to 8.8%. The difference isn't just noticeable, it's a completely different level of risk. We're not even in the same ballpark. And when you put those two numbers side by side like this, the divide just becomes so clear. You don't need to be a statistician to see the story here. On one side, you have a very low bar, and on the other, a bar that is just towering over it. This isn't a small gap. It's a massive gulf in risk.
Let's just put that gulf into a single, stark number. When you run the analysis, the odds of a mixed offender committing a new contact sexual offense are nearly 16 times higher than for a CSAM exclusive offender. 16 times! That's just staggering. It tells us that offending history isn't just a factor. It's one of the most powerful signals we have for future risk. And all of this data directly takes on a really common belief known as the gateway hypothesis. You know, the idea that CSAM offenses are just a stepping stone that almost inevitably leads to contact offenses. As the study authors say themselves, their findings just don't support this. For the vast majority of those CSAM exclusive folks, that crossover to contact offending is extremely rare.
But the analysis didn't stop there. It also uncovered something pretty startling about the gap between what the justice system actually sees and what's really happening. So check this out. We're looking at CSAM reoffending here. Official records, things like arrests and convictions, they show a reoffending rate of about 4%. But when researchers used self-report data, asking the individuals themselves, that number skyrocketed to over 38%. That's a 9-fold difference. It suggests that a huge number of these specific online offenses are flying completely under the radar.
So, what do we do with all this? Why does any of this matter? Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the data can actually drive smarter policy and, ultimately, create safer communities. It's all about turning these numbers into real-world action. The research points to a really clear, data-driven path. First, prioritize the mixed group. Focus the most intensive monitoring and intervention resources on this population. The data shows us that's where the higher risk is. Second, use validated risk assessment tools to get a more detailed picture of individual risk, rather than treating everybody the same. And third, rethink enforcement.
Let's move toward strategies that are targeted and risk-based instead of these broad one-size-fits-all approaches that are just way less efficient.
And that really leaves us with this final thought. You see, this isn't about being less tough. It's about being more intelligent. It's about focusing our finite public safety resources where they're going to have the greatest impact. So the question becomes, how can we use data like this to build a system that is not only more efficient, but fundamentally more effective at protecting our communities?